Okay guys, so today we're going to look at factoring again, but yesterday you focused on polynomials where it was the x squared plus 3x plus 5, say, and it was a 1 in front of your x squared. Well, today we're going to look at polynomials where there's a number in front of that x squared. So, let's look, if you guys open your notes to page 11, let's go ahead and look at number 1. So, it tells you factor 5x squared minus 17x plus 6. So here's where the diamond and the box are going to come in handy. So we can't just use a diamond, guys, because it's no longer just a 1 in front of that x squared. So the top is always your product of the first times last. So 5 times 6 is 30. And the middle term always goes in the bottom. So we need factors of 30 that add to 17. So things that multiply to get you 30, but add to get you 17. And I'm thinking right away, okay, well, 5 and 6, 15 and 2, and I'm thinking, okay, it must be 15 and 2. So now let me show you guys why the diamond, you can't go right from the diamond in these situations where it's not a 1 in front of your x squared. If you did like we did before and said, okay, x plus, and actually it both need to be negative, because a negative and a negative will give you negative 17, but a negative times a negative will give you positive 30. So you can't just do like we did last time and do minus 15 and x minus 2. Because if you went and checked this, you would get negative 15x and negative 2x, which does multiply or does add to get you negative 17. But here, when you go to multiply negative 15 times negative 2, you get negative 30. And we want it to be equal to 6. So this doesn't work when you have a number other than 1 in front of your x squared. So we are going to go from this diamond to a box. So what happens is the two values that you found, and actually if you want to attach your x's with it, it was negative 17x and 5x squared times 6x is x squared, so both of these get an x. So what goes in your boxes is what you guys found. So in this corner you're going to be negative 15x and negative 2x. And your first and last term go in the other two boxes. So 5x squared and 6. So now I have to think, okay, what is the greatest common term between 5x squared and negative 15x? And I'm going to say 5x. Finding that first term, guys, on the outside is the hardest part, because now that you have one, you can fill out the rest. So 5x times what gets you 5x squared? X. X times what gets you negative 2x? Negative 2. And 5x times what gets you negative 15x? Negative 3. This, now, in yellow, is what your factors are. So we have x minus 3 and 5x plus 2. So now when we go to check this, 5 and negative 3 is negative 15x. X and 2 is, and it's not a plus 2, it is a minus 2. negative 2x. And what is then negative 3 times negative 2? So we have our 6, we have our negative 17. So our factored form here is x minus 3 and 5x plus 2. Now, you guys can, right from the beginning, if you want to, do guess and check. You just have to think, okay, what multiplies to get me 5? X squared. The only factors of 5 are 5 and 1. So I know that I'm going to need a 5x and an x. And then factors of 6 are 6 and 1 and 2 and 3. So you would have to play around and do, okay, maybe it's 6 and 1 and then check. And then you could do 2, 3, check. It's really just a guess and check game. But some people like doing it that way. It's sort of like reverse FOIL rather than going through the whole method of using the box and the diamond. So let's look at another one. So let's look at number 3. And number 3, it says 6x squared plus x minus 15. Okay. So again, first times your last goes in the top. So 6 times negative 15 is negative 90. And I'm just going to go ahead and keep my x squared there. And the middle term goes in the bottom. So 1x. So what multiplies to get us 90 and adds to get us 1? So this is where you guys might need to break out the calculator. So let's see here. Factors of 90. So I know factors of 90 could be 45 and 2, 90 and 1, 10 and 9, 30 and 3. I'm going to use 10x and 9x. If I want a positive 1, that means my largest number has to be positive. So 9 is negative. So come down here to the box, and I found 10x and negative 9x. And then the first term in your expression and your last term in your expression. Okay, so what's the greatest common term or factor of 6x squared and negative 9x? It's going to be 3x. 3x times what? So 6x squared, going to have 2x. 2x times what is 10x? 5. 3x times what is negative 9x? Negative 3. So what's on the outside of your box becomes your factors. So 2x minus 3 and 3x plus 5. And you guys can always check, don't forget. So 3x times negative 3x is negative 9x. 2x and 5 is 10x. So that does give us our 1x. And negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. So that's good also. So 2x minus 3 times 3x plus 5 would be your factors. Okay, let's look at number 6. Which says 36w squared minus 12w plus 1. Now, I've been doing this for a while, so to me, it catches my eye, but to you it may not. But when I look at this, I see 36 and 1. And I know that 36 and 1 are perfect squares. The square root of 36 is 6. square root of 1 is 1. So 6 times 1 is 6. Double it is 12. So looking at that, I see that it's the product of two squares. But if you guys want to go through the process of doing the diamond, you can. I just know that if it's a subtraction, they're both going to be subtraction, and the square root of 36w squared is 6w, and the square root of 1 is 1. So looking at that, knowing my shortcut, I know that that's what it's going to be. But you guys can always go through the process of the diamond and square. And if you did that, 36 times 1 would be 36. W squared. Your middle term is negative 12w. Okay, what adds to get you negative 12 but multiplies to get you 36? Negative 6 and negative 6. Go to your box. We found negative 6w. And then our first term. Our last term. Fill out the outside. So you end up with the same thing. If there's a shortcut, though, and you know it, a lot less work. So number 6 says 6q squared minus 14q plus 8. So looking at this, you guys can right off the bat say, okay, 6 times 8 is 48. That's going to be my product in the top of my diamond. Negative 14 is going to go in the middle at the bottom. But looking at this, if you can pull out a common factor first, it makes your life easier because then you have smaller numbers to work with. So if I'm looking at 6, 14, and 8, I see that I can pull out a 2 and end up with 3q squared minus 7q plus 4. Just divide everything in half. Now, instead of having 6, 14, and 8, I have 3, 7, and 4. So the diamond and box are the same. 3 times 4 is going to be 12. Middle term, negative 7q. So what multiplies to get you 12, but adds to get you 7? I'm going to say 3 and 4. But they both need to be negative. So if we go down here to your box and say, okay, we found negative 3q and negative 4q. Our first term is 3q squared. Our last term is 4. So greatest common factor of 3q squared and 4q, nothing other than 1 and q. Okay, 1q times what is 3q squared? 3q. 1q times what is negative 4q? Negative 4. And 3q times what is negative 3q? Negative 1. So your factored form here would be 1q, or q minus 1, times 3q minus 4. The only thing you guys have to remember is that if you factored out that 2 at the beginning, it's still there at the end. We just pulled it out to make it a little simpler. But if you multiply that 2 back in there, you would end up with the same thing that you started with. So that's a little bit of practicing for factoring. Go ahead and finish or try those ones that we skipped on this page. I'm going to skip over to the next page and try number 12. Okay, so this one says to actually solve the quadratic equation. So that's fine. In order to solve a quadratic equation, one way to do that is by factoring. We will learn others, but for now, the one way to do it is by factoring and use our zero product property. So what that means, we just have to get this side to be 0. So we have to subtract the 4p, must do it on both sides, and add that 5 since it's a minus 5. Disappears. And we have 5p squared minus 20p plus 20. So again, you guys could go right from here and factor it, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, wow, you can pull out a 5. And that's going to make my life easier, so that's what I'm going to do. So divide everything by 5 when you pull that out of there. Now we can factor p squared minus 4p plus 4. And if your p squared, guys, is just a 1p squared, then all you need to know is, okay, what multiplies to get me 4? 1 times 4, but adds to get me negative 4. Negative 2 and negative 2. So x minus 2 and x minus 2. So if that, oh, and I somehow went from x's to p's, it looks like. So if that's my factored form, the 3 factors that we found we set equal to 0. So 5 minus 0 actually is a false statement, so not even a solution. You don't even have to worry about it. But p minus 2, if we solve for p, we get positive 2, and in this case, it actually ends up being the same. So you don't have to write 2 twice, but p is going to be equal to